Even now, I sometimes catch myself staring at the wall just to make sure it isn't breathing again. I moved into that apartment last spring. It wasn't much, but it was all mine, a small second-floor unit in an old brick building. The place had character. Creaky floors, thin walls, and that old building smell that never quite fades. My next-door neighbor, Alan, introduced himself almost immediately. He was in his early 40s, pale, with a smile that just didn't seem to fit his face. He was overly friendly, almost like he'd rehearsed it. At first, it was just the usual hallway small talk, but after a couple of weeks, his comments started to feel off. One morning, as I was leaving for work, he called out, "Running late today, huh?" "You usually leave by 7:40. I froze. He was right. How could he know that? Another night, he mentioned how much I must love the TV show I was watching. I hadn't told him. He just smiled and said, "You laugh a lot during that one." My stomach tightened. My TV was on the other side of the room, nowhere near the shared wall. His observations grew more personal. He knew when I cooked pasta, when I showered, even when I talked on the phone. "You talk to your mom every Thursday, right?" he'd ask. I started to feel watched, literally watched. I told myself the walls were just thin, but he knew details you could only see asterisk. One night, a faint rhythmic creak came from my closet. I opened the door and was hit by a smell of stale air and damp wood. At the back, a thin wooden panel was slightly ajar. Behind it was a narrow crawl space. Leaning closer, I felt a draft of cold air and heard something faint breathing. And then I saw it, a perfectly round hole, about the size of a quarter, drilled right at eye level, straight through the wall and into my bedroom. I backed away, my heart pounding. I grabbed a flashlight and aimed it through the hole. It opened into his apartment. I could see a sliver of Alan's living room. My stomach twisted. That's how he knew everything. That night, I nailed the crawl space shut and shoved a dresser against the closet door. But I couldn't sleep. Around 3 a.m., a sound froze me solid. A faint tapping from inside the closet. Tap, pause, tap, tap. Then a low, muffled whisper, almost playful. "Why'd you block my view?" I don't remember grabbing my keys, just running out barefoot and calling the police. They searched both apartments. Alan's was completely empty. No furniture, no clothes. But in the crawl space on his side, they found a small stool, headphones, and a camera pointed right at that hole. They recovered weeks of footage of me eating, reading, changing. They never found Alan. The landlord said no one named Alan ever lived there. Even though they sealed the crawl space, sometimes, late at night, I'll hear 3 slow knocks from behind the wall. I tried to tell myself it's just the old pipes, but once, just once, after the tapping stopped, I heard him whisper my name. Thanks for listening to my story. If you enjoyed it, please hit that like button and subscribe for more content. Stay safe out there. The first time I heard the knock, it came from the hallway. The second time, it came from inside my apartment. I moved into that place on a Tuesday afternoon in late October. The rent was cheap, the space was small, nothing fancy. It wasn't a great building, but it was quiet, tucked at the end of a long, dim corridor that always smelled faintly of dust and rain. My neighbor, a thin older man named Mr. Reeves, was the only person who came to greet me. He looked exhausted, his eyes sunken like he hadn't slept in days. When I introduced myself, he just nodded. Before he left, he said something that stuck with me. "You'll hear knocking at your door round midnight," he said quietly. "Don't open it." I laughed it off, thinking he was joking. But he didn't laugh back. That night, I was unpacking when his words came back to me. Knocking at midnight. What a weird thing to warn someone about. I figured it was just creaky pipes or a quirky neighbor. Around 11:45, I made some coffee and sat on the couch. The building was almost completely silent. Then, at exactly 12:03, I heard it. Knock, knock, knock. 3 slow, steady knocks from the front door. I froze, mug halfway to my lips. It wasn't loud or frantic, it was patient. I held my breath, waiting for a voice, but heard nothing. I got up and peeked through the peephole. The hallway was empty, just flickering lights and long shadows. I told myself it was a prank and went to bed. The next morning, I saw Mr. Reeves standing outside his door, staring at mine. "You heard it, didn't you?" he asked. I nodded. "Yeah, but it was probably nothing." He just shook his head. "It always starts like that. Don't open the door, no matter what you hear." I asked him what it was, but he just muttered. Some doors opened both ways and went back inside. That night, I double-locked the door. Midnight came. The TV was on low when the first knock came. Knock, knock, knock. Same rhythm. I stared at the door, my heart hammering. Then, a whisper, so faint I could barely make it out. "Please, it's cold out here." The voice was soft, weak, almost like a child's. Every instinct screamed at me to stay still. Then another whisper, closer this time. "I know you're there." The knocking started again, faster, harder, filling the apartment. And then, silence. When I finally dared to look through the peephole, no one was there. But this time, there were 3 small, fresh dents on the asterisk inside asterisk of the door, right below the peephole. The next day, Mr. Reeves' apartment door was ajar. I called out, but no one answered. Inside, the place was dusty and cold, like it had been abandoned for months. On the kitchen table was a note in shaky handwriting. Asterisk, "It doesn't stop when you move in. It stops when you let it in." Asterisk, that night, I pushed a chair against the door. I must have drifted off because I woke up to knocking. But it wasn't at the door. It was coming from inside the apartment. 3 slow knocks from the bedroom wall. Then the closet. Then right behind my headboard. Each knock was closer, clearer, like something was moving through the walls, searching for a way in. I pressed my hands over my ears, shaking. Then, one final knock right on the inside of the door. The doorknob turned slowly. The chair shuddered, but the door held. I was gone before noon the next day. Sometimes, late at night, when the house is quiet, I swear I still hear it 3 soft knocks and that same whisper, "Please." It's cold out here. Thanks for listening to my story. If you have any chilling tales of your own, share them in the comments below. And don't forget to like and subscribe for more strange encounters. Stay safe out there. I first noticed the camera because of the way it blinked at me. A tiny red light, pulsing faintly through the darkness like it was breathing. I just moved into this quiet house in early spring. It's one of those neighborhoods where people wave to each other, you know? My backyard shared a fence with a new neighbor. I'd never met him, but his curtains were always drawn, and his porch light was always on, even during the day. One night, as I was getting ready for bed, I looked out my window and saw a small security camera mounted high on his back wall. I figured it was pointed at his garden. But a few nights later, while closing my curtains, I saw the lens glint. It wasn't catching the garden lights. It was catching the light from my room. It wasn't aimed at his garden at all. It was tilted just slightly upward, aimed perfectly at my second-floor bedroom window. I tried to rationalize it. Maybe the mount was crooked. But later that night, when I turned my lights off, that little red light on the camera blinked twice. Slowly, as if it was acknowledging me. I didn't sleep well. The next morning, I went into my yard to get a better look. This wasn't some cheap plastic thing. It was a high-end surveillance model, the kind with motion tracking. To test it, I stepped out into the yard. The camera followed me. I froze. I moved left. The lens tilted, keeping me in its frame. I went right. It followed again. That's when the paranoia started to feel like reality. I called the non-emergency police line, but they said there wasn't much they could do unless I could prove I was being recorded. Lots of homeowners have outdoor cameras, the officer told me. I hung up feeling completely invalidated. That night, I woke up around 2:30 a.m. to a faint buzzing sound. I followed it to my window. The red light on the camera was blinking faster. It was recording. I could feel the lens on me, like a cold finger on the back of my neck. I yanked my curtains shut, but I couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. The next morning, I decided to confront him. I marched next door and rang the bell. No answer. The porch looked untouched, covered in dust. I peeked through the fence. The back patio was covered in leaves and spider webs. The camera was still there, blinking. That's when I saw the power cord. It didn't run into his house. It stretched across the yard, buried in the dirt, and trailed towards my fence, towards my side. I followed it until it disappeared beneath my own lawn. Back inside, in the corner of my basement, behind an old water heater, I found a tangle of wires running up into the wall, directly toward my bedroom. I pulled a cord loose and followed it to a small black box tucked behind a vent. It was a transmitter, the same brand as the camera. Someone had installed it inside my house. The police confirmed the house next door had been vacant for 6 months. The previous owner moved out after a break-in. Someone had been sneaking into his yard at night, digging small holes right along the fence line. The police took the camera down a week ago, but now at night, I hear faint static coming from my vents. A soft, rhythmic clicking, like a camera adjusting its focus. I've taped over every lens I own, but sometimes when I wake up in the dark, I see a faint red blink on the wall. And when I go to look, it's gone, but I can still feel it. That quiet hum beneath the floorboards, still powered, still recording.